Chapter 2.K Ashes and Resolval. Hana's lifeless body lay before me. The smell of the poison stung my nose, and the smoke from the fire suffocated my lungs. The roaring flames echoed in my ears as it burned my skin. I could do nothing but sit there and cry, as those damn monsters killed my family. If only I had the strength to help them at that time, to save them. I leaned over Hana's body, just staring, her dried-up face, her eyes discolored and gray. As my hand reached for her, a cold hand grabbed my wrist. Her head turned, and her lifeless eyes looked at me. "Why didn't you save me, Kai? You did nothing as I suffered." "Suffered?" She screamed as her mouth opened wide and jumped at my face. My body jumped as I sat up, breathing heavily. As I checked my body and face, it was just a nightmare. I was confused and scared in a room I didn't recognize. My body felt no pain, and I had no scars on my body. I was in a dimly lit Asian-style room with tatami floors and sliding paper doors. "Sounds like you're finally up," spoke an unfamiliar male voice from the next room. The door slid open and an elderly man walked in. "Good to see you are doing okay, my boy. You've been asleep for quite a few days. I didn't think you were going to wake up." "Days? Where am I? Who are you?" I asked in a panic. Calm down. You're okay now." He sat down on a pillow on the floor. "To begin with, I'm Ichiro Tsubasa, your grandfather. I found you outside of Keiko's house that was on fire. You were laying a few feet away on the grass. I picked you up and brought you back here to my home in Sirana, a peninsula south of Solendra's main island, Arion. It was a lot for me to process as a kid, but I was inside. I was burning from the fire. Grandfather put his hand on my head as he left out a slight chuckle. "I guess you must have had a guardian angel protect you. I found you on the grass. Not a scar on you, just some burnt clothes and bloodstains." I only felt more and more confused. I curled up and hugged my knees. "Mom, Dad, Hana, they're all gone." Grandfather scratched his head. "Well, I guess they never told you, but they weren't your parents." "What?" "They were your aunt and uncle, and dear Hana was your cousin. Keiko was my daughter. I know you are still young, but you should have noticed. Your last names were even different." I was left speechless, not knowing what to say as he continued. "Now then, I know it may be hard, but why don't you explain to me what happened?" I stuttered as I explained what I could remember. "Those monsters, demons, killed them, and I couldn't do anything," I cried. "I need to get stronger. Then I will. Then..." Okay. Grandfather sighed. He looked sad. I was sad, but also angry. That's when I remembered. "Grandfather, they said we are a demon hunter family, right? Does that mean you can teach me to fight them? Please." Grandfather stared at me for a few minutes before speaking. "Are you sure you want to learn the very thing that made them targets in the first place?" I nodded. He again let out a sigh. "Very well. Follow me." I followed him onto the interior veranda, a beautiful little outdoor area with a koi pond. From the pond jumped out a toad the size of a puppy. It had a dark green body with 3 red eyes on both sides of its head. Then from the sky came a flying eyeball around the same size, wings with blonde feathers protruding out of its sides. "Monsters!" I screamed, hiding behind my grandfather's leg. "Calm down, my boy. They are harmless as long as you don't provoke them." "What are those things?" The toad looked offended at the question. "These are the local fauna that originated from the demon underworld. The frog is known as a merc toads, and the eyeballs are sky gazers. Their kind have lived in the nearby forest for generations. But I heard on the news the invasion only happened a couple decades ago," I asked, confused. He sat me down, his expression growing serious as he explained. He told me that even before the invasion, there were cracks in the veil between worlds, tiny rifts in reality where lesser demons could slip through. Most people never noticed them, or chalked the strange occurrences up to ghost stories and urban legends. But they were real. Hunters, priests, and a few scattered mages dealt with them quietly, behind the scenes. It was all kept hidden from the public, until the veil tore wide open. That was when the real invasion began. When the sky turned black and the first great hordes descended, no one was prepared. Cities burned, governments fell, and the gods, many believed they turned their backs on us. As a child, this information was hard for me to understand at the time. Demons were monsters, creatures that burned homes and tore families apart. I'd seen it with my own eyes. But my grandfather, he spoke of them differently. He said not all demons were evil, that some had minds, hearts, even honor. I didn't believe him. How could I? The only demons I'd ever known were the ones who destroyed everything I loved. Grandfather Ichiro didn't say much after that. He just gave me a long, heavy look, the kind that made my chest feel tight, and then motioned for me to follow him. We stepped out the back door and into the yard, the grass crunching under our feet. I hadn't realized how far it stretched until we reached natural fence, created by the forest after years of use. That's when I saw it. A training ground. Wooden dummies stood in formation, some cracked and scarred from years of use. A few weapon racks leaned against the fence, holding old spears, staves, and even a few swords. The ground itself was worn and patchy, carved with footsteps and scuffed with old memories. "This," he said, voice low but firm, "is where your father trained, and where I trained him." I just stared. I didn't know what I was expecting. Maybe something grander, like in the stories. But the simplicity of it made it feel real, heavy. Ichiro walked to one of the dummies and struck it with a precise jab of his palm. "Before you learn to fight demons, you'll learn to move, to fall, to breathe. That's where we start, not with revenge." I stayed quiet, feeling the weight of those words settle like dust. "I know what you're thinking," he went on. "You want to learn how to fight, to kill, to make them pay." His eyes met mine, sharp and steady. "But training isn't just about revenge. Not if you plan to survive." He didn't hand me a weapon. Not yet. Instead, he walked slowly across the yard, dragging a stick across the dirt as he spoke. "There are 3 things you'll need to learn if you're serious about this," he said. 3 things your father or Keiko never truly mastered. The first was sensing. "Sight is a liar," he told me. "It can be taken, fooled, or stolen. But there, the energy, that never lies." He knelt and placed a hand on the ground. "Everything alive gives off energy. Nirin. It pulses through the world. Through you. Through me. Learn to feel it, and you'll never be caught off guard." I remember closing my eyes, trying to feel what he meant. I felt nothing then, but I never forgot the lesson. The second was strategy. "Your father was strong," Ichiro admitted, "but predictable. Demons don't fight fair. Neither should you. Use your surroundings. Fight dirty if you must. Live to strike again." He demonstrated with a series of traps disguised among the trees, tripwires, hidden pits, and dummies that struck back if approached carelessly. I realized then that fighting wasn't always about strength. It was about wit, timing, and control. The last was humility. "You want revenge. I get that," he said. "But if you can't tell the difference between a battle and a war, you'll lose both. Know when to fight and know when to walk away." It sounded like cowardice at the time, but something in his voice told me he'd paid dearly for that wisdom. I didn't know it then, but those 3 lessons, sensing Nirin, thinking beyond the obvious, and knowing when to retreat, would shape everything I became, and everything I would need to survive. Though the world beyond the mountains still burned with the aftershocks of the invasion, our quiet corner of Serana remained untouched. Most demons believed they'd already wiped out the last of the demon hunters. Whatever resistance was left had been scattered, broken, and with their advance halted in the heart of Solandra, they turned their focus elsewhere. The land around us became a forgotten pocket of peace, isolated, quiet, and hidden in plain sight. That peace, fragile as it was, gave us time. Time for me to grow, time for grandfather to teach, and time for the scars of that night to begin healing, though they never truly faded. Over the years, I still went to school like any normal kid, even made a few friends. A boy named Jiro, loud and always getting into trouble, and a girl named Emma, sharper than anyone I'd ever met. They weren't just classmates, they became something more. My first real sense of family since everything fell apart. The 3 of us trained together sometimes, well, as much as grandfather Ichiro would allow. They didn't know the full story behind what happened to my family. I never talked about it, but somehow they knew not to ask. And just like that, the seasons passed, one by one, until the boy I was became a young man, a decade later.